Palestine while Europe tried to get Zionism started. And this is the mess that we live with today. And again, if you give me the time, but building up to this mess is a very complicated story.
Right. Well, that's about as good as a thumbnail of that as possible. And I really thank you for figuring out how to do that. And that ties into really the next basic question. It will probably be the last question that I'm going to ask you, but there's so much that needs to be built up.
That's it? After this, the interview's over?
No, well, I don't think that'll be up to where you want to take it. Because the question essentially is a broad one, which is that it seems that what some people call the Illuminati, the New World Order, do have a actual hatred for Jews, but to all appearances, Jews have a disproportionate role in the Illuminati. This is a quote essentially from I think Maykow. So how do you account for that apparent contradiction?
Yeah. Well, listen, don't take. I've known Henry Maykow for a long time, and if he made that statement, look, the research is very, very hard to come by. And there's a lot of speculation out there. But one way or another, I became friends with people who understood the real deep background of what Maykow calls the Illuminati. He's got completely wrong. The Illuminati was and is an organization that is not Jewish, and it's very Catholic, and its goal is to bring Christendom back to Rome. It's got nothing to do with Jews, and what Maykow did again was just use a cliched term, like people know what the Illuminati was.
Okay,
the Illuminati, pardon me?
Let me just kind of guide as far as the question goes, just to make sure we're on the same page. What I want to take that is essentially...
There are no Jews in the Illuminati.
Okay, well, what my question is in order to really understand the general concept of how what appears to be Zionism and what appears to be what we call Zionism and all these things about the history of the state of Israel in connection to what you have done probably the most research on, which is, or at least as far as that I can find out there, on Sabbatianism. And in order to really understand it all, I need to have you, if you could, explain in the context of the history of Israel.
I've got you. Okay. All right, there are plenty of Jews in the Jewish Illuminati, which is Sabbatianism. Now, again, back to the Illuminati. The Illuminati is Catholic. It was founded by Adam Weishaupt, and its purpose was to muck up the standard bearers, mostly of the Protestant Reformation, but also the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Jews. Anyone who did not accept Rome as the center of religion was going to be conspired against. That was the Illuminati. The Jews played almost no role in the Illuminati, but they had their own version of the Illuminati it's called Sabbatianism, and to understand that, I have to go all the way back to why it's called Sabbatianism. You sure you want to do this? It's a long story.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. So let's just go.
All right. There was a false messiah named Shabtai Tzvi. Sabbatianism in the Hebrew is Shabtaism. Somehow in English it became Sabbatianism. It's not my fault, it's wrong, but that's what we're stuck with. Shabtai Tzvi on June 18th of 1666 declared that the Messianic age had now begun because he was the Messiah. The problem was it was accepted by the majority of Jews, and I mean all over the world. All the quote I always use is used everywhere somehow, from Iran to Mexico. Now, again, when you're talking about accept it, when the Messiah arrives, well, what did Jews do? They sold all their property for a penny on the dollar. They climbed hilltops, and they expected to be transported to the New Jerusalem. This was happening all over Europe. Shabtai Tzvi was, for a very brief time, the Messiah of the Jews. If you didn't know that, now you do. There's nothing more I can do about it. That piece of history has been rubbed out of the history books. One of the most important, certainly the Jewish history books barely touch on it, but this is what happened. And by the way, June 18th of 1666 had to have been chosen by the Vatican, lest we miss the point. June is the 6th month, and 18 is 6 times 3, and 1666 we know about. That was the date he chose to be the Messiah, and that was the day the Jews worldwide made asses of themselves. Now, without diving in too deeply, Sabbatianism was anti-Judaism. What Shabtai Tzvi taught is that everything in the Torah is true in the opposite sense. In other words, well, do not adulter becomes adulter like a pig. Do not kill means do kill. And that led directly to the Holocaust, by the way, to give you a little, I forgot my literary term, when we mentioned something well before we're going to hit it head on.
Foreshadowing?
Why not? Foreshadowing. That's the word. Yeah, that led to the Holocaust. As the music goes bum bum, and the film goes on, yeah, Sabbatianism led to directly to the greatest repression of Jews. Because
I'm sorry to stop you there. I want you to, if you could, touch a little bit on the idea that Shabtai Tzvi was. It's kind of sort of an esoteric, sort of Kabbalistic idea, and
it wasn't esoteric at all. It was very straightforward. The Torah is a true in its opposite sense. In other words, whatever a blessing is in the Torah now becomes a sin, and whatever sin now becomes a blessing.
And in your research, did you find? I was reading some accounts of Shabtai Tzvi, and this is in 1666. So I mean, there is accounts of this guy.
There are lots of accounts,
and they talk a lot about this shining face and all these things that were happening, very miracles. I mean, there had to be some reason why people were thinking the guy was the Messiah. So is it? Mostly...
Yeah, the Jews were desperate. They were waiting for a Messiah. Obviously. The promotion, I believe the Vatican promoted this guy for their own purposes. In other words, who else had the agents in the 17th century to spread the word of Shabtai Tzvi worldwide in such a short time? But neither here nor there. We don't have the proof of that, so I'm not going to harp on it.
All right.
Now the issue of Shabtai Tzvi was forgotten in the Jewish world when the Turkish Sultan had enough and forced Shabtai Tzvi to convert to Islam. That was it for most Jews worldwide. They realized they'd been fooled, and Shabtai Tzvi was rubbed out of history, but not for all. There was a cult in Turkey. Shabtai Tzvi, incidentally, was Turkish. There was a cult in Turkey called the Donma, which believed that their Messiah's conversion to Islam was in fact prophetic, and that's where they would take their movement. They would join other religions and pretend initially to be Muslim, later on to be Catholic, and anything, but they would remain Sabbatean. And this is I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna foreshadow again, or we're going to be lost. The Council on Foreign Relations is controlling American diplomacy. In recent days, the following members of the Council on Foreign Relations, in let's say the last decade, are given remarkable positions of power, and some journalist looks them up, and lo and behold, John Kerry's a Jew. John Kerry didn't know that his father was a Czech Jew. He forgot it. Everyone thought he was Irish Catholic, and it turns out his father is a Czech Jew. Madeleine Albright doesn't know that she was raised by two Jewish parents and spent World War II in her Jewish cousin's home in London. She forgot all this. Wesley Clark forgot his father was a Jew as he's bombing the hell out of Bosnia. If you look at the number of fake Jews that have come out of the Council on Foreign Relations, you'll understand that Sabbatianism is extremely relevant to your lives. Extremely. But now let's go back to the Dharma cult. They kept Sabbatianism alive, and apparently in Turkey, from my sources, it runs the place. Certainly the founder of modern Turkey, Atatürk, was a Sabbatian. I try not to say Sabbatian Jew because they are the worst enemy the Jews ever had. They despise Judaism, but, well, we can foreshadow a little more. Israel was founded by Sabbatians. There, we jumped forward a whole lot that the labor Zionism, not every other kind of Zionism, there were lots of very good strands of Zionism, including religious Zionism and the Zionism I certainly still believe in. It was called revisionist Zionism, or the what you would now call Likud, which is completely wrong. Zionism, but labor Zionists were Sabbatians, and they were vicious. These people took over the Zionist movement like no one else existed and founded Israel, and they did horrific stuff to the Jews. Forget the Arabs. That's not even of interest to me. It's what they did to the Jews and their role in the Holocaust, which is very serious, by the way. That's disturbing to me. But let's get back to Shabtai Tzvi. He converts to Islam. It's viewed as prophetic, and now you've got a movement going called Sabbatianism. When it really hit Europe, was about 80 years later when the second Messiah was born, and that was Jacob Frank. Jacob Frank converted thousands of Jews to Catholicism. At least that's what he told the bishop. In actual fact, he converted them to Sabbatianism, and becoming a Catholic was standard practice. He was a tremendously sneaky guy who founded Sabbatianism in Europe, and we now have two messiahs. We have Shabtai Tzvi, that's Sabbatianism, and we have Yaakov Frank, that's called Frankism. And if you ask an Israeli about Sabbatianism, they know nothing. But the older people all know about Frankism, all of them. He's a Frankist, means something in Israel, not to the younger generation, but to the older generation, it meant labor Zionist. That's what it meant.
So if you could also, before we kind of go into some of the history about the founding of Israel at this point,
we're not even getting close to Israel, or it won't make sense. Well, Israel is much later.
If you could hit the Frankfurt connection in Germany, I think that's an important tie-in.
Well, I was heading there. I mean, you can't really ignore it. Jacob Frank created well, what he created